Let me ask you a question that could change everything. Who do you have to become for success to recognize you when you walk into the room? Not what you want, not what you're chasing, but the version of you that success is waiting for. Because here's the truth most people never hear. Success isn't avoiding you, and it's not playing hard to get. It's simply waiting for someone strong enough to handle it. And if your results haven't changed, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because the old version of you is still in charge. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. And until that identity changes, the future stays the same. So the real question isn't how to get success. The question is, are you ready to rebuild yourself into the person success is looking for? And let's get something straight right from the start. Achievement never comes first. Identity does. Long before the results show up on the outside, a decision is made on the inside about who you are, what you expect from yourself, and what you believe is possible. Most people are trying to change their life by chasing outcomes, but they're still thinking, feeling, and acting like the same person who created their current reality. And then they wonder why nothing shifts. You don't create success by wanting it badly enough. You create it by becoming the kind of person for whom success is the natural result. Think about it for a moment. Every action you take is driven by the identity you've accepted. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll find ways to struggle. If you see yourself as someone who quits when it gets uncomfortable, you won't. Even notice how quickly you step back the moment resistance shows up. But if you decide deep in your nervous system, not just intellectually, that you are someone who follows through, who adapts, who finds a way, no matter what, your behavior changes automatically. You don't need motivation, you need alignment. This is why goals alone don't transform lives. Two people can have the exact same goal, the exact same resources, and completely different results. The difference isn't intelligence or luck, it's identity. One person is acting in alignment with who they believe they are becoming. The other is trying to achieve something without upgrading the internal story that runs their life. And that internal story always wins. Identity isn't something you're born with, it's something you condition. Every experience you've had, every meaning you've attached to pain or failure, every promise you've kept or broken to yourself has been shaping who you think you are. Over time, that identity becomes familiar, and familiarity feels like safety even when it's limiting you. So when you try to change, your mind fights back. Not because the change is wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. That's where most people stop. They confuse discomfort with danger. But discomfort is simply the signal that a new identity is being formed. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, who must I become? When you operate from that question, your standards rise. You don't just ask whether something is easy or convenient. You ask whether it matches the person you are building. You begin to make decisions not based on mood, but on identity. And identity-based decisions compound faster than any burst of motivation ever could. Understand this: success doesn't respond to neediness, it responds to congruence. When who you say you are and how you show up match, the world responds differently to you. Opportunities show up, not because you chase them, but because you're finally ready for them. People trust you more. You trust yourself more, and that self-trust is everything. Without it, confidence is just noise. With it, even quiet actions create massive momentum. This is why rebuilding yourself starts with redefining who you are when no one is watching. Not your public image, not your highlight reel, your private identity. The person you are in moments of resistance, fatigue, and uncertainty. Every time you do the hard thing instead of the familiar thing, you cast a vote for a stronger identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce certainty. And certainty is the foundation of personal power. Don't underestimate how small decisions shape identity. Getting up when you said you would, finishing what you start, choosing discipline over distraction. These aren't just habits, they are identity training. Over time, you stop trying to be disciplined, you become someone who doesn't negotiate with their standards. And once that shift happens, success no longer feels like a stretch, it feels like alignment. So if you want a breakthrough, don't obsess over the outcome. Obsess over who you are becoming in the process. Because the moment your identity shifts, your behavior follows, your results accelerate, and success stops feeling distant. Become the person success recognizes. At some point, if you're serious about changing your life, you have to be willing to let the old version of you die. Not in a dramatic way, not with anger or regret, but with clarity. Because you cannot build a new future while dragging the same beliefs, the same emotional reactions, and the same habits that created your current reality. Most people say they want change, but what they really want is a new outcome without releasing the old identity that keeps producing the same results, and that never works. Every one of us is living by a blueprint. It's a set of unconscious rules about what's possible, what's safe, what we think we deserve, and how we respond under pressure. That blueprint was shaped by past experiences, by moments of pain, by things that didn't work out, and by stories we've repeated so many times that they feel like truth. The problem is, that blueprint may have helped you survive, but it may now be sabotaging your ability to thrive. You don't. Question the blueprint until life stops working, until effort no longer equals progress, until you feel like you're capable of more, but something invisible keeps pulling you back. That something isn't a lack of talent or intelligence. It's the old programming running the show. And unless you consciously interrupt it, you'll keep recreating the same patterns with different faces, different jobs, different circumstances. Rebuilding yourself means you make a bold decision. The past no longer defines the future. You stop using old experiences as evidence of what's possible. You stop rehearsing stories that keep you small. You stop letting yesterday's failures negotiate with today's choices. This isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about refusing to let it dictate who you are now. Here's what most people miss. Letting go isn't passive. It's an act of power. It means you deliberately choose new meanings. Instead of saying, this happened to me, so this is who I am, you say, this happened for me, and this is what it shaped me to become. When you change the meaning, you change the emotional response. And when you change the emotional response, your behavior changes automatically. Burning the old blueprint doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments of choice. Moments when your mind wants to react the old way, but you interrupt the pattern, you pause, you breathe. You ask a better question. You choose a response that matches the future you're building, not the past you're escaping. That's how rewiring happens. Not through willpower, but through awareness and repetition. Understand this. The comfort of familiarity is more dangerous than the pain of change. Familiar patterns feel safe, even when they limit you. Growth feels uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, not because it's wrong. And every time you choose familiarity over growth, you reinforce the old blueprint. But every time you choose growth over comfort, you weaken it. Over time, the old patterns lose their grip, not because you fought them, but because you outgrew them. You don't need to destroy your past. You need to complete it. Take the lessons, take the strength, take the wisdom, and leave the excuses behind. The past can be a teacher, but it's a terrible leader. The moment you stop looking back for permission is the moment you start moving forward with authority. This process requires honesty. You have to be willing to look at what isn't working without defending it. You have to admit where you've been playing small, where you've been settling, where you've been repeating cycles, because they felt familiar. That level of honesty is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you can choose differently. And when you choose differently often enough, a new blueprint begins to form. One built on higher standards, emotional mastery, and deliberate action. One that supports the person you're becoming, not the person you used to be. That's when momentum shows up. That's when life starts responding differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Release the old blueprint and give the future a chance to recognize you. Let's talk about the real force that determines whether you move forward or stay stuck, your emotional state. Not your intelligence, not your resources, not your circumstances. The way you feel in any given moment shapes what you focus on, what you believe is possible, and how you show up. And if you don't learn to direct that state, it will direct you. Most people live at the mercy of their emotions, reacting to life instead of leading it. And then they wonder why progress feels inconsistent. Emotion is energy in motion. When your energy is low, your world shrinks. You hesitate, you doubt, you procrastinate. When your energy is high and directed, everything changes. You see options instead of obstacles. You take action without waiting for permission. The same problem that once felt overwhelming becomes something you can handle. Nothing external changed, only your state did. And that's the key. Master the state, and you master the moment. Here's the mistake people make. They wait for motivation. They wait to feel confident, inspired, or ready before they act, but emotion doesn't come first, motion does. Action creates emotion far more reliably than emotion creates action. When you change how you move, how you breathe, how you focus, you change how you feel. And when you change how you feel, you change what you're capable of in that moment. Think about it. When pressure hits, some people shut down while others rise. The difference isn't that one group has less fear. It's that they've trained themselves to respond differently to fear. They don't see it as a signal to stop. They see it as a signal to focus. They've conditioned their nervous system to associate challenge with activation instead of avoidance. That conditioning doesn't happen by accident. It happens through deliberate practice. Emotional mastery means you don't deny what you feel you direct it. You acknowledge fear without letting it drive. You feel doubt without letting it decide. You experience stress without becoming it. That separation is power. The moment you realize you are not your emotions, you gain the ability to influence them. And influence is enough to change your behavior in the moments that matter most. One of the fastest ways to shift your state is by changing your focus. Whatever you consistently focus on, you feel. If you focus on what's missing, you feel lacking. If you focus on what's wrong, you feel frustrated. But if you train yourself to focus on what you can control, on what's working, on what you can do next, your emotional state shifts immediately. Your brain follows your focus. That's not philosophy, that's conditioning. Your language matters too. The words you use when you talk to yourself shape your emotional experience. Saying I have to creates pressure. Saying I choose to creates power. Saying this is happening to me creates helplessness. Saying this is shaping me creates strength. These are small shifts, but repeated daily, they rewire how you respond to life. And here's the truth most people avoid. Emotional mastery is built in moments of discomfort. Anyone can feel strong when things are easy. Mastery is choosing your state when things are uncertain, when results are delayed, when effort isn't being rewarded yet. That's where leaders are forged. That's where momentum is built. Because when you can control your state in hard moments, you stop needing perfect conditions to perform. This ties directly to identity. The person you are becoming is someone who doesn't collapse emotionally under pressure. Someone who can feel intensity and stay present. Someone who uses emotion as fuel instead of letting it become friction. And every time you practice that, even in small ways, you reinforce that identity. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than your moods. Momentum doesn't come from massive breakthroughs alone. It comes from consistent emotional regulation. Showing up when you don't feel like it, taking action when uncertainty is loud, choosing a powerful state even when the mind wants to retreat. Do that long enough, and confidence becomes natural not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Master your state, and momentum will follow. At some point in your life, you have to draw a line and decide what is no longer acceptable. Not what you prefer, not what you hope for, but what you absolutely will not tolerate anymore. Because your life is a reflection of your standards, not your desires. You can want success with all your heart, but if your standards are low, your results will stay low. Standards are the invisible rules you live by. They dictate how you treat yourself, how you allow others to treat you, and how you show up when no one is forcing you to. Most people don't consciously choose their standards. They inherit them. They adapt to what feels normal. They tolerate things slowly, one compromise at a time, until average becomes comfortable and comfortable becomes a prison. You don't wake up one day living beneath your potential. You drift there. And drifting always feels harmless until you look up and realize you've been living far below what you know you're capable of. Here's the hard truth. Whatever you tolerate, you train. If you tolerate excuses, you train yourself to quit. If you tolerate negative self-talk, you train your mind to doubt you. If you tolerate disrespect internally or externally, you condition your nervous system to accept less than you deserve. Standards are always teaching. The only question is what lesson they're reinforcing. Raising your standards isn't about becoming harsh or unrealistic. It's about becoming clear. It's about deciding in advance who you are and what behavior aligns with that identity. When your standards are clear, decisions become simpler. You don't debate whether to show up, you do, because that's who you are. You don't negotiate with distractions, you remove them because they don't fit the life you're building. This is where identity and standards collide. The person you are becoming demands higher standards than the person you used to be. You cannot step into a new level of life while holding on to old tolerances. New levels require new rules. And those rules must be enforced consistently, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when no one is watching. Most people wait for life to force change through pain. But leaders choose to raise their standards before pain is required. They don't wait until their health is failing to respect their body. They don't wait until relationships collapse to demand honesty and presence. They don't wait until opportunity passes to become disciplined. They decide in advance what is acceptable and they live by it. Standards show up most clearly in moments of pressure. When you're tired, stressed, or discouraged, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. That's why goals can be inspiring, but standards are sustaining. Goals give you direction. Standards give you stability. Without strong standards, motivation fades and progress becomes inconsistent. With strong standards, action becomes automatic. And understand this, raising standards will initially feel uncomfortable. People around you may resist. Your old habits will fight back. Your mind will look for reasons to lower the bar just this once. But every time you hold the line, something powerful happens. You build self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Confidence isn't bravado. It's the quiet knowing that you will do what you say you will do, even when it's hard. When your standards rise, your environment must change to match them. Some relationships evolve, some don't. Some habits fall away, some routines get sharper. This isn't loss, it's alignment. You're not rejecting people or circumstances. You're choosing congruence, and congruence creates clarity. Clarity creates momentum. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. But even more importantly, you teach yourself how to treat your own potential. If you keep breaking promises to yourself, you teach your mind that your word doesn't matter. But when you honor even small commitments, you restore integrity. And integrity is power. It's the power to look at yourself and know you can be trusted. Standards don't require perfection, they require consistency. You will stumble. You will have off days. The difference is you no longer use those moments as permission to spiral. You correct faster. You return to your standard quicker. You don't let one lapse become a lifestyle. That's maturity. That's leadership. As your standards rise, so does your capacity. You begin to handle pressure differently. You expect more from yourself, and because of that, you receive more from life. Opportunities show up because you're ready to meet them. Challenges sharpen you instead of breaking you. You no longer ask what's easy, you ask what's required. Decide today what you will no longer tolerate and watch your life rise to meet that decision. If there's one place most people avoid, it's discomfort. They treat it like a warning sign, like something has gone wrong. But discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the doorway. Every meaningful transformation you've ever experienced in your life happened on the other side of something uncomfortable. Growth doesn't happen where you feel safe, familiar, and in control. It happens where certainty ends and courage begins. Think about it. The moment you step beyond what you already know how to handle, your body reacts, your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts. Your mind starts throwing out doubts, excuses, worst-case scenarios. And most people interpret that reaction as a signal to retreat. But that reaction is simply your nervous system encountering something new. It's not danger, it's expansion. The question is whether you let that sensation stop you or shape you. Comfort is seductive because it feels like peace, but over time it becomes limitation. When you stay comfortable too long, your world shrinks. You stop stretching. You stop learning. You stop discovering what you're capable of. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade potential for predictability. Discomfort, on the other hand, wakes you up. It demands presence. It forces you to adapt, and adaptation is the source of growth. Every next level of your life will require a different version of you. That version doesn't emerge in ease, it's forged in challenge. When you choose discomfort intentionally, you train yourself to stay present under pressure. You build emotional range. You increase your tolerance for uncertainty, and uncertainty is where opportunity lies. The people who win aren't the ones who avoid discomfort. They're the ones who've learned to move through it with purpose. Here's what separates those who grow from those who stall, meaning the discomfort itself is neutral. The meaning you assign to it determines your response. If you see discomfort as a threat, you'll avoid it. If you see it as a signal that you're on the edge of something greater, you'll lean in. That shift in meaning turns fear into fuel. You don't need to eliminate fear to move forward. You need to build a relationship with it. Fear shows up when you're stepping into the unknown. That means you're not repeating the past. That means you're expanding. When you reframe fear as a guide instead of an enemy, it loses its power to paralyze you. It becomes information, not instruction. Discomfort also strips away illusion. It reveals who you really are when things aren't going your way. Anyone can feel strong when results are immediate. Character is revealed when effort is high and reward is delayed. That's where discipline is born. That's where identity is reinforced. Every time you choose to stay in the discomfort just a little longer, finish the rep, make the call, have the conversation, take the risk, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. And this is where consistency is built, not in massive, heroic moments, but in repeated micro-choices to do what's uncomfortable now instead of what's easy. Over time, your threshold shifts. What once felt hard becomes normal. What once felt intimidating becomes routine. That's how confidence is built, not through positive thinking, but through lived experience. Avoiding discomfort doesn't protect you. It delays growth, clarity, and self-respect, because deep down, you know when you've taken the easier path. And every time you do, something inside you weakens. But when you choose discomfort with intention, something powerful happens. You trust yourself more. And self-trust is the foundation of courage. This applies to every area of life. In relationships, growth requires uncomfortable honesty. In health, progress requires physical and mental strain. In leadership, expansion requires difficult decisions. In personal growth, transformation requires letting go of who you were so you can step into who you're becoming. Discomfort is the common thread. The goal isn't to seek pain. The goal is to stop avoiding growth. When discomfort aligns with your values and your vision, it becomes meaningful. It becomes purposeful. And purposeful discomfort is one of the fastest ways to accelerate change. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you humble. It keeps you moving. Over time, you stop asking, how can I be more comfortable, and start asking, how can I grow? That question changes everything, because comfort maintains, discomfort transforms. And the person's success is not hiding in comfort. They're being built in challenge. Step through the doorway. Everything you've heard so far leads to this moment, because transformation doesn't happen in grand declarations, it happens in daily decisions. The life you're living right now is the result of thousands of small choices made over time. Not the big ones you remember, but the quiet ones you repeat. What you focus on when you wake up, what you do when no one is watching, what you choose when it would be easier to drift. These moments don't feel legendary, but they are exactly how legends are built. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They look for the breakthrough, the dramatic shift, the single decision that will change everything. But real momentum comes from consistency, from showing up again and again, even when enthusiasm fades, especially when enthusiasm fades. Because discipline outlasts motivation, and identity is reinforced through repetition. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are voting for the person you are becoming. When you hit snooze instead of getting up, you cast a vote. When you keep your word to yourself, you cast a vote. When you choose focus over distraction, effort over avoidance, growth over comfort, you are shaping your identity. One vote doesn't define you, but the pattern does. This is why daily structure matters, not as a rigid system, but as a container for excellence. Routines remove decision fatigue. They protect your energy. They make it easier to do what aligns with your standards, even when your emotions are unpredictable. When your day has intentional anchors, you don't rely on willpower, you rely on design. Small actions compound. A single workout doesn't transform your body. A single focused hour doesn't build mastery. But repeated over time, these actions create momentum that feels unstoppable. The key is to make the right actions inevitable, tie them to identity. Don't say, I'm trying to be disciplined. Say, this is what I do. Language matters because it reinforces who you believe you are. There will be days you don't feel like it. That's not a flaw. That's being human. The difference between those who succeed and those who stall is what they do on those days. Successful people don't wait to feel aligned. They act in alignment. They don't ask, do I feel motivated? They ask, what does the person I'm becoming do next? And then they do it, often imperfectly, but consistently. Progress isn't linear. There will be setbacks, pauses, moments where it feels like nothing is working. Those moments are not signs to stop. They're part of the process. When results are delayed, the temptation is to abandon the system. But this is where commitment matters most. You don't change direction because of a bad day. You return to your standards. You correct quickly. You keep moving. Consistency also builds self-respect. Every time you follow through, you send a message to yourself, I can be trusted. Over time, that message becomes belief. And belief shapes behavior. When you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with excuses. You don't need external pressure to perform. You become internally driven. Daily decisions also protect you from overwhelm. You don't have to solve your entire future today. You just have to win the next choice, the next hour, the next action. Momentum is built by stacking small wins. Those wins create confidence. Confidence creates courage. Courage creates expansion. And understand this consistency doesn't mean intensity all the time. It means sustainability. It means designing a life you can actually live while still growing. Burnout isn't a badge of honor. Longevity is. The goal is to build rhythms that support your energy, not drain it. When your habits support you, discipline becomes less about force and more about flow. As you commit to daily decisions, something powerful happens. Success stops feeling like something you're chasing. It starts feeling like something you're becoming. The gap between who you are and who you want to be begins to close, not all at once, but steadily, quietly, inevitably. And one day, you look back and realize it wasn't one massive moment that changed everything. It was the decision to show up again and again until the person you built could finally handle the life you dreamed of. Become consistent and let the results introduce you.